Okay, I think we're live. Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, so not our typical customer podcast. So now I'm here with Dima, our CTO. So we actually decided to record a couple sessions where we want to get a bit deeper into our technology and also like what exactly under the hood, of course, of DigiFabster, and maybe to make it even more funnier, I guess. Maybe dig deeper into the why we do what we do, of course, and why it makes sense to leverage our technology in a different ways, and what's exactly the ways to leverage the technology. When we started like many years ago now, don't want to say 10 years, but it was close to that, if not 10. Yeah, we have an idea that basically based on the state of the market at that time, people looking for the basically out of the shelf solution where pretty much you go find the some SaaS service that basically you can right away with one click button implement on your website and start getting orders and automate the orders, pricing and DFM and things like that. And at that time it was definitely something that it was a new thing for sure, because again a lot of the people just didn't have dedicated IT team, I guess, or just developers team at their shops. And fast forward 2024, yes, it's still true. Of course, most of the shops obviously don't have IT development team, and just overall don't have experience with the development with the software development. So what we want to really chat about in this session is first, of course, when you starting to work with any SaaS company or even with a software boutique software company that just providing the software services. So there's a lot of the do's and don'ts, on the developing software that would be nice to maybe explore and just talk about that a bit. Secondly, of course, in a lot of the cases, we're facing the situation where customers, maybe mid-sized manufacturer, maybe large manufacturer, just at the sort of the cross section, so they need to decide, okay, whether we go with our own development team and develop something on our own, or we trust those software guys, SaaS company, and just purchase the solution. So that's another thing. Again, in a lot of the cases, we're facing some opposition from the internal development team at the customer side, and just overall talk about things where it makes sense to leverage, let's say, not just out of the box solution from the supplier like DigiFabster, for example, but maybe API, maybe the technology itself that under the hood of this out of the box solution. But I think to start this, to kick things off, let's start with really do's and don'ts on the custom development, when it makes sense, when it doesn't make sense. So I can't think about any better person to talk about that than Dima. So Dima, please.
Yeah, I like how you started that, like why we're doing that. So that's a nice question that we chat about without recording, right? What are we doing here? Why are we doing that? Quick question. How many people know who love working with developers?
Yeah, I think it's really a question, do you have experience to work with developers or not? If you do, so you have some understanding, okay, so how actually to approach this topic or this task or this thing. If you don't, then yeah, you definitely have some pre-existing understanding how you think software works and how you think developers should work. But in the reality, if you didn't spend 10 years in the software development, so probably you would not have any insights that you can leverage.
Yeah. So we thinking from the point of view of machine shops, right, and 3D printing shops and other small or mid-sized or big companies that are doing physical stuff, right? And usually when you try to innovate in something, you need to innovate on one thing, right? So that's the classic example. Like if you have to innovate on more than one thing, then potentially you're probably doing too much, and it's super hard to succeed on even even being best in one thing. And if you try to do 2 or 3 or more things, probably it's not the right time or not the right place or maybe not the right person. So you need to think twice when you are in this situation. So that's why when like our clients or our friends who are making physical stuff with the machines, with 3D printers, when they try to think like what they can do with code, what they can do with software development, it's always a good thing to ask right at the beginning, like, do you really want to be in that business? So do you want to jump into this and really build this second thing to innovate, right? But in some situation, it really makes sense. So I think we will talk about that a little bit later, but potentially there are some clear use cases, and we can see them more and more that really make sense writing your own code. But I think the main, like, I'm a software developer who writing code like for more than 15 years now, and I think the main idea that I've learned in all this time is like, if you can avoid writing code, don't write it. If you can skip the step, just go straight to the business, go straight to the thing that's working. That's probably the best thing to do. And the interesting stuff is that if you hire outsource companies or outsource person or a team, or if you hire that in-house team with like 1 person or 2 or 5 or whatever number of devs you're gonna have, they will, and I do it myself, right? So they will work in principle of black box. So they will try to acquire as many functions, as many new stuff, as many exciting things that they can think of. And this idea has the term of scope creep, is that you start with something small, but then if you have a dedicated person working on that, they will just naturally will go broader and broader, taking more and more things to do, and then this will be good, right? So nobody wants to do some useless stuff, so they just want to naturally do better to your company and to the world. But what that ends up doing is just your deliverables, your goals, they just shifting away, and this drift is almost inevitable. This is something that everybody who starts doing any development has to realize. But first of all, write as little code as possible, or don't write code if you can avoid it. So that's number one. The second is just set clear goals. Try to reduce scope as much as you can, and just stop drifting from your initial resources and initial goals, and set very clear and strict boundaries of what are the goals, what are the resources, and what do you want to achieve with that, right? And the third point from do's, right, if you're talking about do's, I think from the machine shop or 3D printing shop perspective, the main goal always should be about enhancing operations and not disrupting them. Because software has this magic wand that can do pretty much anything, and with this like AI magic and this vibe flying around, that, this will all be possible soon. So everybody will be replaced. But again, the ability to disrupt is very strong, but enhancement operations sometimes may not sound as sexy as this thing that we will do something that will change everything, right? So we will do like 3 times better. When you enhance operations, probably you can do 10% better, or maybe even worse, right? But when you disrupt in something with this big goal, probably you're innovating at the wrong thing, right? So I think these are like the 3 main topics that, like, write as little code as possible, focus on clear small things that you can do and really should be focusing on. And the third thing is try to enhance operations, not disrupt them. I think these are like three main things.
Yeah, I really like the last point, especially because obviously this is something that in a lot of the case marketing promising, right? So they promise, okay, 10x whatever. So like, yep, you're playing our solution and it will be like 10x more, faster, better, stronger, whatever, right? And then it's a gap, right? So between the expectations of course, and like what's in reality. So yeah, but in reality again, so we see like even small enhancement. Again, when we're talking about enhancement, when we're talking about enhancement in the world of the quoting, which is our world, we're talking about like basically even if we talk about the hours that can be saved on every single quote, is huge. It's already huge enhancement that can be done to your operations. And yeah, and some other interesting thing that you touched. So. I mean, obviously, when you, as you said, like when you dedicate the person from your team to work on some project on the let's say on writing some code, let's say on developing some solution for your own shop, for example. And again, we know shops that did great. Did great, and they developed their own solution that, that may be even better than any out-of-the-shelf solution because it's designed specifically to their operations, specifically to their processes. So the question is that we definitely know those who were able to develop that and put on the website, but also we don't know those who failed with that, because it's a lot of them, of course, that basically starting to work on the, let's say, quoting solution for their own shop. And we know for certain those folks, yes, they have a team, they have an IT team, developers, they have from 3 to 10 people working on that. And then after 1, 2, 3 years, so they actually come back to us we just weren't able to basically finalize the product, just actually to launch the product. And again, that's maybe related to the thing that, again, if you don't have the very certain goal with a very certain KPIs and very certain MVP, you will be pushing this sort of the very nice final moment when you're going to launch the solution. You will be pushing this for the years, of course, and you just can never finish that. So exactly. The question is how exactly those teams and again, we're talking about teams, not software developers. We're talking about the folks that are running machine shops, maybe sheet metal, maybe CNC, maybe 3D printing. Some of them were able to actually develop their own solution and be quite successful with that. Basically being quite successful on the machining end and also on the software end, right? So basically enhancing their own processes with their own software. So what do you think, what's different with them? So what did they make differently compared to to others who's failed?
I think it's pretty clear. So we saw it many times that successful teams, they try to fill in the gaps. So instead of develop everything, they just try to stick to this composability idea, right? So there are so many tools out there, so many solutions out there, so many layers. Basically, the IT consists of layers, right? So you have hardware layer, you have the infrastructure layer on top of the hardware, you have some abstraction on top of that, and then if you just take as many ready-to-use, off-the-shelf things and just clearly understand what are the gaps that are applicable to my business that will help reach my goals, and just fill in those gaps. And those gaps, usually, when you try to analyze them, they are usually very small, right? And they lie into very distinct buckets that we see, right? And we saw them over the years, that one of the buckets is just integrations. So you already use your third-party software, you already use your ERPs and everything else. So you just fill in the gap of connecting the data. So you have 2 or 3 systems, and you just need to make them work seamlessly. So that's one clear gap. The second bucket of ideas that are also very clear is that some people and some teams want to provide very unique but very clear user experience to their customers. So, for example, they've been in the business for 10 years. They clearly understand what their customers expect, what they can provide, knowing their capabilities, knowing their engineering skills, and they just narrow down the functionality to the very specific UX or the type of service that they can provide to their end users. And sometimes it indeed requires some software, especially from the front end. I think this is the second thing, and the third thing is just automating jobs of your own engineers. Right. So, for example, you don't care too much about the end users or external quotation tool, but you just want to automate your engineer's job, so they just don't wander around the Gmail or whatever your email provider and just open letters and downloading the files and just structuring it in the folders. You try to automate that. And again, this is something that clearly can be done with off-the-shelf solution, just trying to connecting the dots and making them work together. So back to your question, I think that's the clear distinction. And people who try to make everything at once, build the quotation, build the integration, build the UI, build the everything at once, that's possible, right? But that just requires so many resources that people just don't realize how complex, how fast this becomes super complex.
So basically, you need to be satisfied with the small wins, and that's really important. Be satisfied with the small wins, maybe not big win, but even couple of the small wins is something that moving forward your business and everything. So that's I guess.
So we talk like the sport like gym coach, right? So we just go there and say, yeah, just satisfy. Healthy diet is not that easy, right? So just enjoy your small wins, and that's it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. So talking about the maybe slightly larger companies where you have your development team, or maybe you have outsource partner that do all the development for your company. So when do you think it's wiser and maybe from the business perspective just better decision to basically not trust your developers or the partner and go with the out of the shelf solution? So what would be the sort of the checklist or the qualification process, if you will, to make this decision?
So I think the right type of teams, I think it both applies to outsourced companies or your internal team, is that people who make software, they have to ask you about the business goals. So you have to see this forest behind the trees, right? So you have to understand like what is the end goal here and what you try to achieve. So I think that's the biggest pitfall of any project, that you just try to start with functionality and not with the right and clear business goals. I think that's one thing. The second thing is you just have to clearly understand like what CAD files you want to work with, like DFM, how much information you want to extract out of the models. Like all of these questions should be narrowed down at the beginning, because we see these projects all the time. Like you see them as, yeah, just keep as much info as you can, just extract as many features as you can, because we will find a way to do something with that. Right, so that's a red flag. So you need to start very small, because the whole CAD analysis is super complex. And the third thing I think is specifically with quotation tools, the scalability matters here, because the analysis is pretty complex, right? So you can, even if you rent or buy like very powerful software with thousands of cores, like hundreds of gigs of RAM, and with like huge AI capabilities, you still need to understand like what are your like scalability expectations. If somebody approaches with like 100 or 200 large files, what are the expectations from the end user side? And if you try to really analyze all of that, you can clearly understand like, does the team understand the complexity of all of that? Because if you don't build a system with like these topics in mind, it will just fail very fast. The exception is you just build something for like very limited use case, for a very limited number of people, just for like one engineer, like small tool. And in this case, what you can be just the wrapper around the Excel file. All the software that we are building is just basically the wrapper around the Excel file, and the AI agents, what this like great achievements that we all see now is just like they can operate Excel files at the very large scale, very fast, with the human language. And to my mind, I think if you build something for like one or two engineers, just build the macros in Excel or like Google spreadsheet, and that's probably going to solve like 80% of your complexities, and just add a type form in it. Yeah, I think it's super broad and interesting topic. How can you see whether your team understand what they're doing, or just jump in and start developing something?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point, especially because we now finally see a lot of the shops that developing some their own quoting, either quoting software or just the front end for that. So what I think this the best way to approach that is just basically bit by bit, right? So we're talking about like small things. So let's say within your business process you have a few gaps that you really want to, not even really want, but you have to automate that, because again they disrupt all the operations, or they delayed some delayed the quoting process, or delay, or just just create more load on your engineers. So when you started thinking about that bit by bit, like, okay, so maybe let's introduce for our customers, let's introduce the 3D viewer, or let's introduce automatic quotations for specific technology, for specific machine even, and for specific quantities, right? So just this small bit, right? Not like, okay, let's develop quoting plus ERP plus, data analysis systems, but just talking about bit by bit. And that, I think, very important when we're talking about API, because again, so that was not from the day one, but that's something that we were working a lot in the last, I don't know, few years, of course. Just ability of our system to be used by external company, not as a whole, but on a modular basis, right? So we're talking about 3D viewer or specific quoting or like the order management or something else. And that's, I think, important moving forward, because again, so it's always our recommendation when we're starting to work with the companies that develop something on their own to really look at that on the sort of this bit by bit perspective. Like, okay, so what actually you need to fill the gaps in your business processes. If you don't need like the whole solution, that's okay, that's completely fine. So, but again, leveraging those small bits really can like basically allow you to move 10x faster with your quoting solution, with your and overall like enhance your customer's experience, right? So let's talk about that really, because I think that's important. I think it's important for machine shops to understand that it's not necessary to look at the software always as a whole, but maybe to look at that from the perspective, okay, I just have some gaps in my business process. So how can I fill those gaps with something that, yes, 10x just faster and just and more efficient?
Exactly. So this is very closely relates to this topic of composability, or there is a term in the software development called dry, don't repeat yourself. So if you have some component which is already built in by you or somebody else, just plug that in, and your main work, majority of time, is just find the right tool, find the right thing that was already done by somebody else. Nowadays, if I think a lot of people familiar with AWS and what they are doing, and the number of tools that AWS provides is just astonishing, right? So there are people are starting like months and years just living in this ecosystem, and like every year at their Las Vegas conference, they just add in more and more tools, and it's hard to keep up with. So the number of tools out there that was already done by somebody is amazing, and it's just much more efficient. Most of the times, just much more efficient to go there, search that, try an API, plug that in your solution, and boom, that's it. So especially with this, this AI writing tools, the code writing tools, where you can really say, okay, so here's the API documentation. So give me, based on their examples, just give me the working sample of the code. And most of the times it works. So it's not there that it's like fully automated, so you don't need people there, so that we are not there yet, but I think we're very close. I don't know, like for example, like in our case, we see people approaching us with like very tiny piece of functionality, like they don't want to spend time building their own 3D viewer. And they can integrate ready-to-use 3D viewer with lots and lots of features, with world thickness analysis, with this like different kind of modes, which can be integrated to their React app or Angular app within like literally 1 minute, right? So you just one line of code with like simple configuration variable that you can just plug where you need it, and it works. And the cool stuff also is about the cost structure, right? So you don't really need to pay upfront. Like most of the cases, you pay on the usage basis. And back to this idea of AWS, so that's their hook, right? So you start free or very cheaply, and then you just start seeing your bills and like, wow, so how can I reduce that? But there are ways, right? Even with AWS, there are ways how to reduce that, and people do that. So there's some way for optimization. But in the opposite, if you take any startup from the 90s, if they take any investment, then like $1 million just will go straight to the infrastructure, because you need to buy racks, you need to install them in their office or in the basement, right? So this is where you start with. And nowadays you just pay zero, and I think with API, that's super helpful. So the cost of implementation is very low. The cost of running that is purely per unit basis. So if you don't make money, you don't spend money. So that's a good deal. And you just need to go out there and see, and don't trust your developers who will say, No. So that's just not applicable to us. So we need to develop our stuff, right? And so I know how to do stuff, so I will do this best. So give me like 2 months. In 2 months, you're going to have everything. Trust me. And then in 2 months, you say, yeah, I need 2 months more, but yeah, I have almost everything ready. Just give me 2 months more. And
trust me, I'm a developer.
I'm I'm an engineer, yeah. And if you are not in this kind of situation, right? So in 2 months you just get what you are promised, and you're happy with that. I think you're in a very unique position. So just retain this developer with you and or this team. So that's brilliant, guys. It's already 10x engineer with you. So just work with them and be happy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you said, this is something that I think. That I think we need to definitely. I mean, a lot of people, of course, understand that already. So a lot of the things, a lot of the fields, a lot of the industries definitely democratized, like from the software perspective. So basically, you have a lot of the tools that available out of the shelf, and not necessary the tools that you need to use as a whole, but also like as we're talking about the API. And again, it doesn't mean that you need to have like the team of 10 developers to put together anything like that. It just can be one person that basically leveraging the things that are already available and putting together exactly what your shop needs. Again, not a whole system, just this. Okay, let's call it filler for the gap that you have. And I think that's just a good starting point. You don't need to think about the software as this gigantic like leap of faith that you need to do like to get somewhere. Again, of course, if you're a business at very large scale, that's a different story. But in most of the cases, it's really not about that. We're really talking about like automating some small processes that just takes too much time. They just not necessarily needs to be don't need to be like taking that much of time. And that's where API just a very very good solution and very approachable thing that to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest example, like the most popular example, is just the built-in integration. I think this is just a no-brainer. So you think about the custom user experience, you have to be at some level of understanding like what you want to build, but with kind of basic integration, this is just something that 99% of people face with like on day one, right? So you have your HubSpot and you need your OLED there, or you need to support the invoicing system that your enterprise customers work with, or you work with Airtable or with Trello or with like Jira or whatever task manager you do, or you just want to export some kind of data from the system into the SQL or the BigQuery, whatever you have. So this integration is where you can call that as a custom systems and custom software development, but to my mind, like, this is really now just so common and so relatively easy to build that you just have to use the ready off-the-shelf solution, just connect systems together. There are systems out there like make.com or like AFTTT, right? Just make that process very visual. Take this JSON from that source, put it in the SQL into that destination, and just do that every like 24 hours. Right? So this kind of tool can be even built by the people who never coded before and probably should not even code. So any other types of use cases that you have from top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the integration is the kind of low-hanging fruit for sure. Because again, of course, we have a lot of customers that came to us. Okay, we want to start with integration. Sometimes, in some in some better situations, I think sometimes we were able to say maybe let's start with something like a little bit kind of smaller as a project. Okay, let's implement. And by implement, it's a big word, but let's implement quoting software first, and then we do, and you can leverage, for example, CSV export at first, and only then let's do integration or something like that. But again, I think it's kind of the mentality that maybe, not even maybe, I think it's shifting for sure, but the mentality that in the minds of the people that not software people, it's something then when you purchase the software it's a commitment for sure. But it always feels like a so big commitment that you need to put a lot of the resources in, and that's related to the one of my posts on LinkedIn. It's related to the post where, in a lot of the cases, yes, those people have intention that yes, they want to purchase the software, they want to automate some of the processes, and then after they made the purchase, they can't find a time for implementation, not because you need a lot of time for the implementation, but because they think that they need so much time, so much resources, so much people to be involved at the very beginning, of the process, that they're like, yeah, we're give up. Give up with that.
That's about the disruption instead of enhancing, right? So you just think about disruption. So that every step of my process will be different now, and I don't have this courage to start doing that. And I will do this tomorrow or next week or next year, right? So let's start with Q1, right? And it never happens. Even if it happens, it rarely succeeds. So exactly, I agree. So we see just much bigger success from companies who just say, here is a small piece that I want to optimize. How can I do that with ready-to-use tools? How can I spend as little resources as I can and do this like next week? So I have like 3 days to implement this stuff, like overall, and then next Monday it should work. And this is something that's really promising.
And that's why, of course, I think we definitely have more success with the slightly smaller companies where it's basically one person that's pushing everything, and in some cases he have understanding like, yeah, I just want to do it bit by bit, just by small pieces. And again, it's basically come from the experience for sure. Of course, at some point of time, and again, it's related to other posts where, in ideal world, to make machine shop efficient and to make it scalable, you need everyone in a company to leverage the same processes, the same software, everyone, of course. But again, it's definitely not in the beginning. It's something that come probably later, of course, because again, so not everyone have hundreds of millions in funding right away, which is by itself is a big thing, of course, to achieve and to just to get it, of course. But that's why you need to start with just very, very small, with a small wins, small pieces. And again, that's why we're trying to push a lot of the shops into this direction. Again, start small, for sure, start small. And yeah, it works with some of the people, but again, of course, we want more shops have this mentality. It's something that can be there from day one, but I think we just need to continue pushing this message, I guess, to just bit by bit and just small pieces. So.
But it's interesting that there are two strategies of expanding the software, right? One is top to bottom, when just C-level buy some software and say, now we all use that. And the opposite direction is from the bottom. And for example, Slack is a great example of that. It's just people started using that at the work, never was this enterprise device at the beginning. It's like people just started bringing their device to work. And just the managers just realized that everybody using the iPhone already. So how can we leverage that? It's inevitable. And so with machine shops and these manufacturing shops, we just see that this bottom to top, from the bottom approach is not. It's very rare. Like people almost never, if you are a machinist or operator or just salesman, you rarely. Google some viral tools. How can I automate my day-to-day operation, right? So if we're thinking about top to bottom approach, then exactly what you just said, it's it scares people sometimes. How can I make everyone at my company, even if I have 7 people working, educate 7 people and do this on a regular basis? Sometimes it's hard. It's much easier to say, okay, so I will start working with this one guy who will leverage this one tool again on Monday. So not Q1 2025, but tomorrow or Monday. And then we see, so what is the strategy to leverage that and then use with a couple of people, with 3 people, with 5 people, and so on and so forth. So yeah, again, start small, grow big. And if you're enterprise and you have this mentality and you have this approach, kudos to you. It's very nice. And probably you have some upside from making this kind of decisions.
Yeah. Completely agree. So I think that's the very good point to wrap things up. For sure, I think Again, we would really encourage people to, start small, of course. Again, not thinking about trying to basically solve all the issues at once. It just never work. Just never work. And start small, and even this very common thing, celebrate small wins, because that's important. That's extremely important, and that's something that really helped to like motivate the whole team as well, whole shops. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dima.
Yeah, thank you. I think we agreed too much, right? So let's next time talk about more controversial topic where we don't agree too much. So next time.
Absolutely. We will for sure.
All right.
Cool. All right. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.